Hey friends, welcome to the Stories of the Way podcast. Today we have an incredibly special guest, one of our own, the one and only Ava Hooten. Woo-woo.
Ava, welcome to the podcast.
Howdy, folks.
And it's kind of unexpected. We knew you were going to be on the podcast eventually, but if you've been listening to our first few episodes, you'll know that we usually release an episode on Monday. And this past Monday, we did not get to release an episode because Ava left for a mission trip on Sunday to Boston. And we got a call when she landed that she was having just some really bad stomach pain, not just normal stomach pain, but really bad. And she ended up getting...
A couple hours later, we got another text that said Ava is vomiting on the side of the road.
On the side of the road.
And we really feel like that she might need to go to the emergency room. And to which we said, absolutely, take her. And lo and behold, you were admitted with a mystery situation.
Boston Medical Center. And this is from our point of view. We were, on Sunday, we were like, well, what do we do? You know, it's past kind of the time where flights are going in and out. We woke up Monday morning. I got on a flight first thing Monday morning.
Really hard decision. Who was going to go? Who was going to stay? Daddy has TSA pre-check, and that made our decision.
And if I had not had TSA pre-check, I would not have made it on.
Neither of us would have made it to you. So.
On the flight. So it was the right thing to do.
Yeah, the Lord worked it out for sure. But it was hard. It was hard not to be with you.
And then we stayed in the hospital till Thursday. They discharged you on Thursday. And so literally your entire mission trip was spent in a hospital bed doing all kinds of tests. And we thought you would be an amazing person to have on the podcast because of everything that kind of happened on that mission trip. And from your point of view, how God used you on that mission trip and used that situation as continues to kind of in an interesting way. Because, you know, the whole thing of the podcast is ordinary people, extraordinary God. And so kind of walk us through from your point of view, headed to the mission trip, what happened when you landed, all the feelings that you had. Just kind of start from the beginning and walk us through it.
Yeah, so we got to the airport at like 6 a.m. I was feeling so normal, like actually better than I usually do at 6 a.m. in the morning. So energized, so ready to get on this plane and go to Boston to share the gospel with these people and just be a light for Jesus. I've been praying over this trip for weeks. I was so excited to go because I actually wasn't supposed to go. And then like a week before the trip, me and a friend were like, we're going. So we bought our tickets. We were going with this group. We were in departure, actually. They had just announced that the plane was landing. And all of a sudden, my stomach started hurting really bad. And I'd kind of had this pain before because I've been dealing with some health stuff for like the past 4 years-ish. So we kind of thought we knew what it was. So I was like, I think this is what it is. So I told my friend that was sitting next to me. We texted our student leader and we were like, I was like, hey, I'm in a lot of pain. I think I just need to go back to the place we were staying and just chill for the rest of the day and it'll go away. So he was driving me back to the house. It got just like was steadily getting worse and worse. And I was like, I'm in so much pain at this point. I was like, I don't think it could get any worse than this. Like, I think this is peak pain. Like, don't think it's going to get any worse, but I can do it. Like, I don't want to cause anyone trouble. I'm just going to sit in this room and I'm going to be totally fine. My friend that had come with me was in the room with me, and actually this is kind of the point where everything starts to get a little fuzzy. Don't really remember everything. Like, everything's really... I remember being in a lot of pain, but past that, don't remember a lot of details. I know at one point I ended up on the ground, and then I was in a car, and then I was in one hospital, and then they moved me to another hospital. So lots of traveling around, lots of being really sick. They were giving me a bunch of pain medicine. I was so confused. No one knew it was happening. My friend had come to the hospital with me, so poor her was having to sit in the hospital with me, and my student pastor, so they didn't get to be with the group, and I was just feeling so awful, like physically and just like awful for them, that I was like, I'm causing all of these problems. And I know, which is so many like lies being spoken into me. Constantly just being like, this is my fault, wish this didn't happen. I was so confused why the Lord was letting it happen, because I was like, I have come on this trip to serve you, come on this trip to be a light for you. And all of a sudden I'm in the hospital and I can't even actually think straight because I'm in so much pain. Like, I just
Wow.
physically, I couldn't even put words together. I couldn't tell the doctors what I was thinking. I wasn't like, it was like I was in a mental block because pain is blinding. Pain blinds us to reality. We don't understand what's happening anymore when we're experiencing all this pain. And I think that's the case for a lot of people.
Yeah.
Even like spiritually, we get blinded by our own pain.
That's really good, Ava.
It was really hard. I was in this mental block and this hurt. It was like I felt like God was hurting me. Like, it was like, I've come for you and now I feel like you're mad that I've come for you and now you're hurting me because I've done this. And then I started thinking, did God actually was I not supposed to be here? Like, was this my fault?
Wow.
And was all along I've been praying over this trip, maybe I had come here on my own, though. Maybe this was selfish of me. So I was like, maybe this is punishment? Like, maybe I'm being punished for being selfish? I was so confused. Then I got admitted into the hospital. None of you two weren't there, so I kind of felt like I was kind of in it by myself. I was like, okay, I can be brave. I'm 17 years old. 17-year-old Ava
17
can
whole years
take
old
it on.
in the hospital by myself.
I love
Yeah.
it.
I was like, I can do this. Was so relieved when you got there. I remember the first day of being in the hospital, the day before they'd already run all these tests. They had taken my blood like 4 different times to run blood work, had a CT scan, had an ultrasound. Like, they were doing all these tests. Every test made me feel worse, though. Like, it made my stomach, after every test, my stomach was in more pain than it had been before, and they couldn't figure out what was happening, and everyone was so confused. Was so glad when you got there. The first day, so I did this thing every morning. I read my Bible, I read my devotion, and then I read a Psalms, and then at night is when I do my personal study. So in the morning, I was trying to do my Psalm. I was trying my best. Again, still couldn't really think. I actually couldn't really move. I was in so much pain. I couldn't really do anything. So I had just asked someone to hand me my Bible just so I could have it there and just so I could have it open to my Psalm so that I could at least try to do it. Well, the doctor came in the first day, and I had it out on my bed, had been trying to read it. It was Psalm 59. It was talking about how the Lord does not forsake us. Mm-hmm. The doctor came in and asked me about it, and he was like, what are you reading? And I was like, I'm reading my Bible. I'm in the Psalms right now. And he was like, I'm not going to lie to you, I haven't seen the Psalms in a really long time. And he was like, what Psalm are you reading? I said, Psalm 59. He was like, will you tell me about it? So while he was doing all these things, trying to figure out my stomach, I was just telling him about the Psalm that I was reading for the day. And then he asked me about it 2 different mornings after that. A day later, and then the last morning I was there, he asked me about it again, which I thought was really cool. Again, though, was not thinking that I was making an impact in any way. Actually, after that happened, it kind of had gone out of my mind immediately. Immediately, I was like back into, I'm in pain and I am hurting. This is not fun, and I don't see the point in this. And so many people were texting me saying they were praying over me and saying that they thought I was there for a reason. So many people were like, God is telling me you are here for a reason and there's a purpose in this. And I kept thinking in my mind, God, all these people are telling me that there's a purpose in this, and I do not see it. If there's a purpose in this, I need you to show me what it is, because I am so lost. Again, that comes back to our pain blinds us. We can't see the purpose sometimes when we're in that much pain because we're so blinded by that. Which also, as I was thinking deeper about it the last day, as I was reflecting on it, I was thinking about, obviously, when you're in pain, it's hard to think about other things than yourself and trying to make it through your pain. But even in the moments where I was feeling fine, I was in this constant, selfish, me kind of mindset, kind of making it all about me. When people were being like, the Lord has you there for a reason, and me immediately being to the Lord, mad at him, being like, you don't have, there's no purpose in this. How is there a purpose in this pain? I don't understand. And then that's how it came to the me, is I wasn't thinking about anyone else. I wasn't thinking how the Lord would use me to impact others, because I was just thinking, I can't wait to get home and not be here anymore. I wasn't trying to find the light, and I wasn't trying to find how the Lord would use me, but I had been praying over the trip so hard that the Lord would use me. The last day I was there, I was in my prayer, and everything kind of started clicking, and like it was like all these pieces started fitting together.
I love
It was like my eyes were opened. It was like I had been living in this dark place, and all of a sudden there was all this light, and I was like, this is crazy. Like there was this peace. It wasn't that I was healed. Like I still had a long way to go, still not completely recovered. Like it wasn't that the pain went away. It was just that I had finally opened my eyes enough to see like all the purpose in the pain. And I had been asking the Lord the whole week for healing over and over again. I was like, Lord, please just heal me. I want healing.
Yeah.
And at the end of the week, I came out of it not healed the way that I wanted him to heal me, but a lot of different parts of me had been healed spiritually. He had opened my eyes to a lot of things that I had been struggling with, and there was a lot of healing in that. I even wrote in my journal, I was like, I didn't quite experience the healing that I thought I was asking for, but you have healed this complete other part of me that I didn't even know needed to be healed.
Wow.
The last couple weeks before that, I'd been dealing with really bad anxiety, and I couldn't figure out where it was coming from. I kind of thought it was coming from this comparison, that I was comparing my walk to everyone else's. And the Lord opened my eyes a lot about that. It's kind of like if you have an older sibling, and
Which you do.
right, which I do. So
Married for 20
We're
years.
so cool.
So, my older sister's name is Lily, if anyone doesn't know. It's kind of like if Lily came and asked y'all for something, and y'all were like, let's just say Lily came and asked y'all to do something with a friend, and y'all were like, sure, like, you can go do that. And then immediately after, I came up to you, and I was like, can I do that same thing with my friend? And y'all were like, no, not yet. Y'all, that's not y'all being like, I don't trust you as much as I trust Lily. It's y'all being like, you're not where Lily is. We've gotten to teach Lily all these things about how to handle all these situations. We haven't quite got, like, we're teaching you still. You're still learning. You're still learning how to do all these things. You're not where Lily's older than you. She's more mature in this walk that she's taking than you are. So you're not going to go and do all the things Lily's doing right now because you're not there yet. You're not Lily. And I had not been thinking that way. I'd been thinking in the way of, I want to do that right now. Like, right now is when I don't want to wait. Like, waiting is so, what's the purpose in waiting? Which is another thing that I'll talk about in a second, because he's definitely been teaching me a lot about that too. But I've been thinking, what is the purpose in this waiting? I feel like I'm doing nothing. I feel like I'm just sitting here waiting for something that I'm kind of, as it goes on, I'm getting more discouraged, feeling like it's not going to happen, which is just not true. That's another blinding lie. It's just a lie that blinds us. And then we can't, like, we're not even trying to find the truth anymore. We think we are. I thought I was. I thought I was trying to find the truth, and I wasn't. I was dwelling in this lie that I should be somewhere else, and I wasn't living in the what I was in.
So your trip to Boston, almost this hospital visit, was almost a microcosm of what you had been experiencing in life.
Right.
You thought you were going to this place. You had all of these expectations of what it was going to look like. God had something different in mind, and when the different came, you just said you were disappointed. You were mad at him. You were like, this is not the way this was supposed to turn out. This is not the way I thought it was going to be. And I'll say this too. It was so obvious to me a couple of days in. It took me a minute too, because I was tired, and I'm praying for my daughter. I'm praying the same thing. God, why are you putting her through this? You know, even as a dad, why won't you just heal her? And then I had this moment too where I started hearing doctors and nurses talking to you about your faith, and people who would come into the room would see your Bible or see your spirit or interact with you. The last day, you had a new nurse the last day, and she came in and she said, I was so excited to see that I got your room. You're famous on this hall. Everyone has been talking about you. That's what she said. And what they had been talking about was the way that you had suffered, and the way that you were in the Psalms every morning, and that you were journaling, and the way that you were processing through what you were experiencing. Even when one of the nurse techs came back in and specifically wanted to know what journal you had, what Bible you had, because she wanted to get the same one that you had.
I haven't even heard that part yet.
Yeah, because she wanted to get the exact same one that you'd had, just because seeing you in the Word had encouraged her so much. And so there was a point, Ava, where I looked at you and we kind of had this moment together. We were like, you have been on a mission trip all week
to Boston.
It wasn't a soccer camp in the park.
It was a medical center.
Yep.
It was a medical
Floor
center.
5.
Floor 5 in the hospital bed, and you did go on a mission trip. Mission trip. You were the patient.
Yeah.
Not sure anybody would intentionally go on that kind of medical mission trip, but you had a big impact.
And I'll say too, Ava, we got to experience some things in that room, just some moments that I remember. One, the window of your room overlooked a street that they said when we got there, now if you leave the hospital, don't go down this street. There was a methadone clinic around the corner. We saw a guy get arrested. I looked out the window one day and saw a guy kind of in the wings of this little thing, and I saw he was shooting up in his ankle. And I actually asked a nurse about it, and she said, yeah, they just opened that place. People can come and use drugs with a nurse present so that if they overdose, they can try to revive them. And I saw him we saw people walking down the middle of the street high. They look like zombies just in the middle of the street. We saw so many things out that window of just brokenness, and it moved us to pray. We spent a week praying for the city with a front row seat to just the brokenness. And really all we had to do was sit in there and pray.
Yeah.
And I still think about that street. I'm still praying for faces that I saw on that street.
Me too.
And also one more memory, and then I want to hear maybe some things that stuck out to you. But we were sitting there one day and we looked up, and the most beautiful, bright rainbow was in the sky over that street out your window. And it was kind of a crazy moment of God. The rainbow is a symbol of God's promise that he is faithful, and that he remembers and that he sees. And I just remember looking out that window over that street with you in the bed, and God was just speaking his faithfulness and his promise. And it was so clear. I don't know. What are a couple moments you remember like that?
Actually, there was 2 different nights where there was a rainbow. I don't know if you were there for the first night, but there was a rainbow on the first night I was there. And then there was another one when you were there, and it was a double rainbow, which was so cool. Another thing that the Lord gave me, I felt like it was like a little gift in the hospital. I love clouds, which is such a random fact about me. Love clouds. Just love how white and puffy they look. They just look so happy to me. It's like happiness is a cloud. And every single day, the Lord gave me a different kind of cloud to look at.
Yeah,
it was like a painting in the sky every single day. I just got to look out at my favorite thing in the world, which is just right outside my window. We were high up enough to where it was beautiful. That's something that I thought was a blessing.
So such a huge
Sweet
blessing.
Gift. Yeah. It was cool / hard / all of it, as somebody who is praying for you as your mom. Sitting here in Knoxville while you're in Boston is hard enough, and then I was praying for you and praying for healing and for your trip. And I think it's interesting to hear you and your dad talk about all that happened and about the mission trip you were on and about God answering your prayer in a different way than you thought, because even as a person on this side who is praying for the healing, I only know how to pray for what I know how to pray for, So I was sitting outside, I remember, just on the porch, just crying out to the Lord and saying, Lord, make her feel better today, please. Why are you not taking her pain away? I want you to take her pain away right now. I was doing the same thing.
Yeah.
Not from your position, but from a mom's position of Lord, please take her pain away, And he was revealing other things to you that I did not know, that I knew I was praying, but I didn't know what I was praying fully for. Yeah. So it's really cool to see, even as a person of prayer on this side of it, how God answers prayer Not even, beyond what I would have thought. I wouldn't have thought you would have come back with a story of, yeah, I went on a mission trip to Boston. It was just a medical mission trip, not a soccer camp.
Yeah.
You know, so it's sweet to see.
What do you think, talking about waiting, going back to that idea of waiting, waiting in that hospital room, talk a little bit about, because I think for people who are, 15, 16, 17, 18, that's a really common place to be. There are a lot of pressures that you feel like are on your shoulders to know things that you can't possibly know, to have things figured out that you can't possibly have figured out. But there's this expectation that you do. And so there is this sense of waiting and expectation. Talk about God speaking to you about that, maybe in the hospital, and what it feels like to be 17 and in that spot right now, and how God might speak to you in it.
Yeah. So the week before, I'd been listening to a lot of podcasts about waiting, which is a crazy coincidence. I'd actually talked to...
Not a coincidence.
Not a coincidence, but I had talked to Mommy a lot about it. It talked a lot about how waiting is where our soul growth happens. It's actually the most important, most foundational parts of our life happen in our waiting.
Wow.
Not in these big, huge moments. It's all the tiny thousands of moments that make up every day that are forming who we are. And that's our waiting. Yeah. Which is why our waiting is so important. And I hadn't seen waiting as important. I had just seen it as this thing to get through. And the waiting is exciting. When you think about it the right way, the waiting's exciting because that's where you're becoming the person God created you to be. It's like he's forming you. Our waiting is our formation. It's where our souls are being formed. I think God allows us to come to mountains that we can't get over by ourselves in order for us to realize that we need him, that we are in desperate need of a savior, desperate need of someone to help us. Because I had been trying to do it all by myself, figure out my own life, wanted my own dreams to happen, wanted it to go my way. Like I think a lot of people come to that moment in their life where they come to this realization that they want it their way. Or at least I did. I came to this heart check moment of, I really want my dreams to happen. And then all of a sudden I was like, actually, I've been praying that I wanted the Lord's dreams to happen this whole time. And it was my dreams that I was going after. I wasn't sitting waiting for the Lord's answer. I wasn't sitting in that waiting. I was just chasing something that I wanted. Specifically chasing my photography, wanting to be some great photographer. I started literally a couple months ago. Literally. It's not like I'm doing it for since not been doing it for 5 years of my life. Right. Literally it just started.
It's a process.
So it's not even that hadn't even been waiting for that long. It's not like I've been waiting for years for something to happen, but I was chasing my dream with my whole heart. And then in the hospital room is when I was writing down the last day. I have this whole long journal from the last day of just all these things that I realized the Lord had been doing and the Lord had been teaching me, and started to realize that my dreams were changing, which is another prayer that he answered. I had been praying over and over again that the Lord would change my dreams if they weren't his, or that he would just add on to my dreams. Like, my dreams are great, but I really want to do what you want to do. I don't want to do what I want to do. I don't want to chase all these things that are going to leave me empty. I don't want to feel unsatisfied my whole life. I don't want to live in anxiety, feeling this unsatisfaction because I'm doing something that I'm not supposed to be doing, and because I'm chasing after something that is not what life's supposed to be about. It's not what we're supposed to build our lives on. It's just not a firm foundation. It's just one of those things that'll pass away in the end. And the Lord's been changing my heart in the healing way of how the Lord's been healing my heart spiritually. I just want to share that's my new dream. My new dream is to take that healing to as many people as I possibly can, and to witness and to testify to the healing that the Lord's brought me, not physically necessarily, but the healing that the Lord's brought me in the sense of freedom, the freedom that I found in realizing that life is not about chasing all these things. It's not about being successful. It's not about never failing, because we're going to fail. I have a problem with not wanting to be bad at anything and not wanting to fail at anything.
You are the overachiever of overachievers.
And
Not happy with a 98.
Yeah.
Right?
okay, that's not true.
No, it
That
is.
is
It is
untrue.
true. You'll be like,
That is
in
no.
school, you'll be like, I did so bad on this test, I got a 96.
That is not true.
Yeah.
And we were
That's
like,
not true.
Guys, I'm gonna fail.
and
Hey,
you're-
Ava, what's your math test when you got it back? I was like a 95.
And we would be like, we need to get a DNA test because your mother and I would have been like, a 95? I quit math. I'll never take another test. I have reached the top
I'm
of the mountain.
Math Olympian. Yeah.
But that's just how you are. Like, that's
It
how you're
is.
wired.
Yeah.
You're an achiever, and you find value in doing a good job, which is awesome. God's made you like that. He's going to use those things in your life, but all of your superpowers can also be your greatest weaknesses, and taken to the too far, it can actually become something that hinders you from being able to be free.
Mm-hmm.
And all these expectations in the past that you've put on your shoulder, even the photography thing, like I want to be the best right now, and learning to appreciate the process of learning and growing in a gift and a skill.
I love that you said my new dream is telling people about the freedom that I'm experiencing right now. And you got to do that in Boston in the hospital before you even realized you were doing it. Then when you had that realization, you got out of the hospital. You did spend one night with your team, right? In Boston. What did you do that night?
Well, first I got to tell them about my experience in the hospital. I got to hear some of their experiences, which were really cool. And then we got to lead everyone in worship.
Not we. We were sitting there at the fire, and Turner actually brought the guitar over to me and said, hey, would you lead us in a couple of songs? And fun fact, on our way back from our Colorado trip a couple weeks ago, your mother closed this finger in the car door, and I still don't have feeling in it.
I love that he's now broadcasting.
Yeah, on the
this.
podcast. Y'all
He's-
pray for this finger because I still can't feel it.
memorializing.
But I told Turner, I was like, man, I can't feel this finger. Ava will lead us in worship. And I just handed you the guitar, and you led your entire team in worship for a long time. People were yelling songs out, and songs she didn't even know. She was just leading them with confidence. And I just got to sit there and listen and watch Ava. She's always been a leader, but just to sit there and lead in worship and lead with her story and encourage the team with her week that had been really hard, but say it's been to the glory of God and he's used it. I mean, you want to talk about a moment as a dad where I was just in my feels. That was it. Just watching you lead,
And I remember you telling me that I said, was that scary that he just handed you the guitar? And what did you say?
No, I was like at that point in my week, I was like, I feel like everything is just like, let's just do it.
Yeah,
let's
just whatever
let's
the
just-
opportunity is. Let's
yeah,
take it.
there's
Take
just
it.
no reason to be afraid. And I had lived my life in so much fear of doing all those things, and then all of a sudden it was like I came to this realization that it just didn't matter, and it was the Lord died on a cross to free us from the fear of the opinions of others and to free us from our anxiety. And I was done living in this fear of first what others thought, but also I was just running away from the feeling of feeling anxious. I was
Wow.
just running away from, because everyone knows if you've experienced being anxious, which I think everyone has at some point, it is just the worst, most consuming like feeling.
Yeah.
And I was running from it, and I'd
Yeah.
been running from it for so long. And I kind of just came to this point where I was like, I'm just kind of done with that. My eyes have been open to all this that doesn't matter, that I thought mattered so much, and now all of a sudden it just doesn't matter anymore. Also, just experiencing something like that makes you realize how much of a gift just living is. Just like walking, I hadn't walked in like 5 days, so now every time I've walked since then, there's this prayer in my mind that I'm like, thank you, Lord, that I'm standing up right now and that I'm walking around.
Yeah.
Or hadn't eaten in a really long time because I just couldn't, and now every time there's like this new deep gratefulness for everything that I
Yeah.
couldn't do and now that I can do again. And we're missing it because we think it's so normal. It's kind of like every single little gift that we have is so normal in our lives that we don't see it as a gift, and every single little thing that we get from the Lord is such a big gift, and it's such a blessing. The Lord definitely opened my eyes to that too. Now everything is a gift, and even in our pain, there's so many blessings that are surrounding us. Like the Lord, at the end of that, when I got discharged from the hospital, I got to spend a whole evening in Boston with my dad,
Which was amazing.
which was a blessing. We got to walk on the beach, which was amazing.
Saw
There was
the sunset.
Gorgeous sunset. The Lord is always placing these little blessings in our lives, and we have to open our eyes to see them.
That's really cool. It's cool that you got to do that in the hospital. Then you got to express that freedom, that newfound freedom with that group. And even right now on this podcast, you're getting to be a storyteller of following Jesus and the freedom that you can experience even in pain, right? And in everyday moments. And as a 17-year-old and in your waiting, it's a huge testimony, Ava. And I'm so thankful that you chose to be with us today on the podcast. And I just want to ask you, if you could leave everybody today, an ordinary person,
Serving an extraordinary God.
Yeah, serving an extraordinary God. Give them one encouragement today.
Ooh.
Based on your experience in Boston.
Could I focus it down maybe even a little further from
Yeah.
So last week I was at a camp in Ohio, and I was sitting in a Q&A session, and 3 girls showed up, and they were your age, and all 3 of them said that they were in deep anxiety and depression. One said that she had already committed suicide, and I just looked at them, and I saw my daughters, I saw my girls, I saw you, and I thought about your age group and everything that they're experiencing right now. And so even when Mom was asking that question, if you could look out across at your peers right now who feel like they're not as useful for the kingdom because of their age, or they're not even thinking about being useful just because they're overwhelmed with anxiety and depression, what do you look at your generation, or somebody who's listening to this, or a parent that's trying to help a kid who's what's something that God would use you to speak to them even right now?
What the Lord's really been speaking over me is God is not asking you to do anything right now except for to sit at his feet and to let him do it for you. Because God's the provider. He hears your prayers. He loves to hear and he loves to answer. And he doesn't always answer in the way that we want him to, but he always answers, and it's always best because he knows what's best, and he's going to do what's best because that's just who he is. Because he's a sovereign God of grace, and he loves to shower that over his people. So what I've been practicing, and what I think everyone needs to practice who is experiencing that kind of anxiety and who is walking into the future just not knowing what the future looks like, is just to sit in the Lord's presence and just listen. Just pray, listen, but also just sit in his love. Like, go and yes, say, God, I'm open to hear your voice, but I'm not even here to ask anything from you. I'm just here to sit and just let you love me and just to be filled with your love.
That's a word, Ava.
Yeah.
That is a word. I think that is the invitation at its core of just the gospel itself.
Yep.
Just follow me.
Yeah.
And if you ever graduate from the simplicity of that call, you are going to find yourself in trouble.
Yeah.
You know,
in Africa, they say, if you feel heavy, you've picked up something you weren't meant to carry. So I have to constantly be reminding myself that over and over again. When I start to feel heavy, I have to remind myself, I have picked up something that the Lord's not asking me to carry. I'm not supposed to be carrying this.
That's so good.
The Lord's not asking me to know my whole future.
Nope.
He's actually saying, I don't even want you to know that.
Nope.
I just want you to trust me. I just want you to follow me.
Yeah.
That's the only thing that you're supposed to be doing right now, is follow me and is listening to me and is growing in me. And I will do everything else. I will lead you to exactly where you're supposed to be. I will make you the person you're supposed to be. I will give you the people you're supposed to be with. Everything Every part of our story is authored by God, and he knows where we're going to end up. That's just needs to be a constant reminder. It just
So
need to be
good.
what we're always remembering.
So good. As you hear your sister rummaging
Yes.
around in the
Oh, she has Bluebell
Yep.
ice cream.
in the
You guys cannot
freezer.
see
That's
that
why I keep
right
randomly
now.
pausing, is because I keep getting distracted.
So, you know, we're doing this podcast in our living room, and Josie is asking for ice cream.
And
at
she
the
just
moment.
got it.
And-
She just
and
got
she
the
got the
okay.
thumbs up
So she
on
knows
the
how
ice
to
cream.
do her asking in a good way. Yep.
You know, I think that's a pretty cool example of like being a kid with your parents and how God invites us to be a kid. With him, somebody, I read something the other day that said the only one bold enough to wake up the king in the middle of the night would be their little kid.
Wow. That's good.
And that's how he's invited us to come in prayer and sit at his feet. Like
Yeah.
nothing's too important. Just sit at his feet and listen. And I think we're learning that with you. You know, it's not the ordinary people, extraordinary God. I don't care what anybody tells you. Like that is the thing to learn on a daily basis, is just to sit in the presence of Jesus and learn his voice.
Yeah.
And there's no age limit on that, you know.
Right. Everything you were saying in this podcast, I thought the whole time you were talking, that's not a 17-year-old thing. That's a life thing. That's a following Jesus day by day, our entire lives. So you spoke to everyone today.
Spoke to me.
Yeah, me too.
Because if you're 17 and do it, God will use you. If you're 46, I think that's how old I am. We were talking today. Couldn't figure out how old I was.
Yeah, I think
but
you're 46.
I think I'm 46. 17 and do that, God will use you. 46 and do that, God will use you. And it doesn't matter what your resume is. If you're not in that place, God can't use you. And so the level playing field of just sitting in the presence of Jesus, learning his voice and doing what he says is the beautiful thing about the kingdom. So
Yeah.
thank you for sharing. We're going to have you back on because you are beautiful and wise.
Yeah.
And we want to hear more from Ava. If you've been listening to this podcast and you want to have maybe a conversation about what it would look like to be a part of the kingdom that way, go to storiesoftheway.com. If you want to learn what it looks like to be a disciple maker, to make disciples, there's some resources there, and we'd love to share that with you. And thank you so much, Ava. We love you.
Love y'all too.
Love you.